Unique New York. Hey, we are here live. I'm in Colorado, Superior, Colorado. Adam Caratini joining us from downtown Orlando.
Yes, sir. Maitland
Yes,
in
sir.
downtown Orlando.
Nice. So tell us, or we'll jump right into it. Tell us about what's going on. Who are you? Why are you here? How do we know each other? A little bit. Let's go right into it. Boom, go.
My name is Adam, and I am the head coach of Eat the Frog Fitness in Maitland and soon to be downtown. Um, I've been in fitness for 9 going on 10 years now. I've known Bo a majority of that time. Bo was my very first CrossFit coach at Reebok Fifth Ave in New York.
Yes.
A very special place.
It was a special place. Very cool. So yeah, tell us a little about that time, CrossFit in New York City, and then where did that take you?
So I was graduated school, moved to New York, and I was working in hospitality, hated my life. I was just working 70, 80 hours a week, doing something that I didn't want to do. And I stumbled upon Reebok Fifth Ave, and I walked in, and it changed my life. One, because I thought I was fit until I was put through my very first Metcon. I think I threw up the first day. So it was a very humbling experience. And two, the community was something that I still till today haven't seen anywhere else. It was amazing.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. For sure. CrossFit is a unique thing. Not everyone will throw up, folks, but tends to happen when you have someone who's very competitive. I think we can categorize Adam as such, and then you get pushed to the limits, and he had a little athletic background enough to, when you give him this very unique kind of CrossFit type test, pushes a little too hard and the body's not ready for it. So that's sometimes what happens. So yeah, for sure. So you were there. How long were you in New York? And I know at least through 2017. Yeah. 18.
Yep. So I moved back and forth from New York and Orlando, but originally I was at Reebok Fifth Ave for almost 2 years, and I would spend about 4 hours a day there.
Yeah.
It was just an outlet for me, and with my ADHD, it was just a really good outlet for me.
Yeah.
And then went through a bad breakup, decided to move to India for a little bit.
India.
Yeah.
The country India.
The country India. I was there for six.
Is that your background? I didn't actually know that. Or
no,
what's your connect?
I just had a friend that I met through bartending, and I was going through that breakup, and he was like, "Hey, dude, come to India." So he gave me a business visa, and I kind of just backpacked India for a little bit.
Wow.
And in India, I was in fitness. I was already a certified personal trainer, but in India, the first thing that they ask you is, "What do you do?"
Right.
Very first thing. And that's when I decided that I'm just gonna say I am a trainer. So I kind of was able to recreate my identity, because although I was training was like a second option for me. But once I stepped out of my comfort zone, I stepped out of my environment, and I was able to really think of what I thought of myself. That's when I became a trainer.
Awesome. So then India took you back to Orlando or New York first for a little while?
Back to New York, but I had in India, that's when I developed this purpose to help people feel more comfortable in their own skin, and I really wanted to open up my own gym. So when I moved back to New York, I started interning at Reebok GSP with Darren over in New Jersey. And coached there for a little bit, and my cousin gave me a call, and he wanted to open up a gym, so that's when I moved to Orlando.
Awesome. And that's where you became the head coach of Eat the Frog Fitness. Tell us, what does that phrase mean, Eat the Frog? If you guys aren't familiar, I mean, I've heard that phrase before, but tell us why that name. And I know you didn't necessarily choose it, right? But tell us where that comes from.
So it's a Mark Twain quote, and it's eat a live frog first thing, in the morning, and you have nothing worse to look forward to that day. So it's just
Yeah.
about attacking your most difficult tasks first. And it's something that I really live my life by. And it's actually by the founder is Brian Clay, which he is the Olympic gold medalist 2 times in the decathlon.
Wow. Yeah. Decathlon has a very interesting correlation to CrossFit because you're doing so many different modalities. Decathlon is very specific, 10 movements and sports, but I've always found that super interesting. I know a couple of high-level decathletes that certainly were into CrossFit and made that transition really easily. So that's cool.
Before CrossFit, it was the test of the world's fittest person.
Yeah. Yeah, that is absolutely true. I remember in the 90s, was it Dan versus do you remember you're a little younger than me, but they had two of the decathlete guys and they were like, who's going to win? Dan versus I can't remember the other guy now. It was like Dan versus Matt or something, and I feel bad that I can't remember their names, but it was definitely like they tried to make it a big marketing thing to get people excited about decathlon because it's not the most fan favorite sport.
Yeah.
But that was a cool thing. And that was when cross trainers as shoes, they were trying to push those. And it's like, what is cross training? And yeah, now you have CrossFit, right? So it was an interesting thing in the 90s that I definitely remember as like a kid, not really understanding sports science and all this stuff, but it definitely stood out to me that there were these two guys that were doing like the high jump and all these different cool activities. And yeah, I still remember that 96 Atlanta Summer Olympics and 92 Barcelona. Yeah, so that was cool. That's I'd love to chat with him at some point too. But back to you, sir. So Eat the Frog. And so you guys are doing group classes, right?
Yes.
Tell us a little more about, is it CrossFit style? I don't think, because you're not a CrossFit affiliate.
No.
Is it similar to F45 or Orange Theory, or do you guys just want to have a separate identity?
So it is high-end boutique fitness, but so we are in that space, but it's a little more personalized. So we do consider ourselves to be the most personalized group fitness training. And we do use heart rate zone technology, and we are a 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week studio.
Oh, wow.
Which really helped out during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So there are coach play classes for the majority of the day, but we have 2 big IMAX screens on both sides of the room where you can follow along with the workout every hour on the hour.
So 24 hours. So people are coming in at like 2 a.m.
2 o'clock in the morning. People are coming
in. Is there like a trainer there ready for them? How does that work?
No. So you have a key fob and you fob your way in. You check your temperature.
So you're doing your own thing.
So you're not doing your own thing. So the IMAX screens turn on every hour on the hour, and it rotates through three different sessions. There's strength, agility, and cardio, and each one has an aspect of the other one. But you follow along with the screen. There's an animated character named Tad, and he's demoing the movement for you. Yeah, so it just gives more flexibility. So, firefighters, nurses,
right,
people in hospitality that, they don't have a traditional schedule, it really works out for them.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, that's definitely great. So yeah, that takes us to pivoting during the pandemic. How did you guys manage that? And was that an easier transition because of, like you said, that 24/7 model and having limitations? Did you put how much space do you have? Yeah, I'd love to hear about kind of that whole model.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. We did pretty well during the pandemic. One, because it's Florida. 2, because our station
was there just for those who might not have been following, was there an actual lockdown from the governor or anything like that?
There was, but it was 6 weeks as opposed to some places are still closed down.
Yeah, some are still closed down. I think here in Colorado they had a 3-month shutdown, something like that. I just was talking to one of the gym owners here, so yeah, it definitely was different everywhere. California had a few, but I think in Orange County, where I used to live, I just made the move for those of you following along. In Orange County, they might have had lockdowns, but I didn't even know about them because the sheriffs basically were like, we're not going to enforce whatever. Like there was indoor dining and all that stuff. So yeah, that was an interesting thing to see and experience. And I think the gyms basically, I know some gyms were still having huge classes and things like that, but yeah.
We have a studio in San Diego, and they had a big outdoor space, so they took all their equipment and they moved their studio outside. And
Mm-hmm.
other studios were still closed down, so they actually got a big membership boost because they were one of the only studios
Right.
that were still open.
Yeah, I
Um,
just did my first CrossFit class in a very long time again with one of the gyms here in Colorado as I'm trying to meet some people and all that. And they had, first of all, it's the first time I've been working out in my garage basically since the lockdowns. But it's the first time I've worked out with a mask on. They require that you have the mask on indoors at all times. But they did have the parking lot with a few stations where you can bring your bar. So I went, the rower stayed inside, but I would come outside, catch my breath, taking my mask off. I'm still also getting used to the elevation out here. But yeah, and then I'm doing the barbell and double unders outside, put my mask back on, go back on the rower. So that was kind of interesting.
Fitness within the fitness, running back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How is that? It's always like anytime I drop into a new box, it's like the first day of school, and you're just getting all giddy.
Yeah, I
So,
think with the pandemic and masks on, it made it a little more like, again, normally I think I would tend to introduce myself to more folks in the class. You still had a little bit of that today, but it was definitely more like, okay, like I don't want to touch you, I don't want to give you a high five like after the thing, and
yeah.
I'm just gonna clean my stuff, but like, hey, good job there. But yeah, with the masks on, it was definitely a little different experience. Like I said, it's my first class I've done in a while, having been in the CrossFit space for a long time. But just being used to working out of my garage now, it was an interesting experience for sure. But yeah, just wipe down equipment after, and there is that little moment as I'm standing there, hoping that no one in the enclosed space is breathing out COVID germs. So you never know. But I think the rates of transmission in gyms are super low
Super low.
between people just being active, healthy, which is something that guys like Bill Maher and Joe Rogan I'll give credit to for saying, vaccines are great and all, but like this is a sign that we should all be getting healthier. And that's kind of what I do. I'm 100% online right now. I might actually end up working with this gym that I just met with, some in-person stuff, but the online stuff I work on kind of holistic longevity, looking at the 5 pillars of health that I talk about of nutrition, sleep and stress, mindset, recovery, all that fun stuff. And then referring people over to my lovely wife for kind of connection check-ins on, how their relationships are going, the same way we do physical health, right? And you have a little ache and pain, your shoulder's bugging you from XYZ. We want to get on top of that. Same thing with a relationship. And again, where does that domain come in, right? Is that up to the personal trainer to be like, hey, Adam, like, I noticed like you and your wife are just kind of yelling at each other. What's up with that? Like, but those fights happen. And, again, that's something my wife and I connected on very early on in our relationship, talking about our careers, is we wish we could help people avoid a lot of these things. Because by the time they come to see either one of us, a lot of times as a physical therapist or as a sex and relationship therapist, it's usually like, okay, I've had 10 years of this problem, or we're about to get divorced. Can you fix us? It's this kind of interesting thing. Same thing with fitness for me. Like some people, yeah, I think with this pandemic, it's going to be super interesting to see. I'd be curious, again, have you noticed more people coming in, trying the concept out? Are people that were not doing any fitness before saying like, I need to get out and do something? Or is it people that just were pivoting from doing other group fitness classes, and you guys happen to be one of the best options available right now?
It was both. It was people maybe not wanting to be in a global gym setting because it's so crowded and they don't feel comfortable and no one is monitoring what anyone is doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're anywhere from 6 to 12 feet apart in each one of our stations.
Right.
So that was a big plus. Everyone's moving counterclockwise. It was very organized, which I think people took a liking to. And then I think there was people that were never in fitness, but they do understand that this is preventative medicine. This is, not the cure, but if you get healthy, you have a better chance of fighting this, which is extremely important. And then there was a third category of people, which was this became their haven. There was so much chaos going on in the world, and people were losing their jobs, and people didn't know when's the next time they were going to work, or they were just really scared, and we provided a safe place for them to release those endorphins that they needed, and they were here every single day because this community made them feel comfortable.
Yeah, that is very cool. You mentioned endorphins and serotonin, and I know that we were going to touch on one of the things, and you mentioned it a little bit in your intro, the concept of ADHD, right? Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Yeah, that was pretty good. I didn't even write that one down. Yeah. So, and there's ADHD and there's ADD are the two that maybe are similar. They have different diagnostic criteria, right? From a clinician, psychologist, psychiatrist, like my wife. So tell us a little about your history with that, how that led, to finding exercise, again, to the concept we talked about before around, serotonin is kind of an issue, or you have lack of it. That's what leads to some of the issues, and being able to find exercise as some way to kind of balance that out. So yeah, tell me about that, and love to hear your story there.
Yeah, so I've always battled with ADHD. I was in remedial classes all the way up until high school. And then in high school, I had a couple good teachers that learned that, hey, maybe he's not dumb. Maybe he just learns a little bit differently. So they helped me get into college. And then I had to learn pretty much how to teach myself. I was the kind of student that showed up first day of school, midterm, and finals, and I had to teach myself. I have to lock myself in a room and hyper focus. So ADHD is in the someone's brain is the lack of releasing certain chemicals, which is dopamine, serotonin, and adrenaline. And so those are things that I lack. And because of that, I am forgetful. I can jump from one idea to the other without completing it. But there's also a lot of good benefits of having ADHD. Hyperfocus being one, another one being our ability to think of things differently because we can see so many angles at the same time. Like I'll have an idea or someone will say something and I can look at it from 10 different angles very quickly. And I didn't even know this, but I've been self-medicating through fitness for a very long time. I've been addicted to working out. And it's because exercise releases those three same chemicals, serotonin, dopamine, and adrenaline. So I didn't even realize it to this year. This year, I really dove deep into trying to make this my superpower, my faster than normal brain. And it's because once you release those chemicals, because you're lacking them so much, you can hyper focus. So I'll go on a long run, and then right after that long run, that's when I'll feel my most clear. So I wake up at 3:45 every single day, exercise right when I wake up, and then I'll have 2 hours before my son wakes up or before my wife wakes up, and that's when I get my best work done. So
you eat the frog.
Yeah, I eat the frog first thing in the morning every day.
That just kind of triggered a random tangent for me, but do you know Nelson Dellis he was at CrossFit Union Square in New York, I think, with Leah Dellis was his wife. They got married, I think they're on their second kid. He's a speed reading champion, and I think he has a mastermind or master class in speed reading. So I was wondering if that's something that would translate to that high focus speed reading, but that's just a random kind of tangent. And I think they're in Florida. I forget exactly where they are in Florida, but I think they might either be St. Petersburg area or something like that. But anyway, I'm hoping
if the reading is very short, then we got hyper focused, but for a very short time.
Yeah, yeah. No, but but again, I wonder if getting a skill like that would you almost get into that flow state is what it sounds like if those listeners are flow states where again the brain just starts kind of working in that, or if anyone's seen the recent movie Soul, the Pixar movie. Did you see that movie, by the way?
Yeah, amazing movie.
Yeah, great movie, but
so good.
Yeah, but they talk about that flow state where he's playing piano, and that's just the thing he's so good at, and you're kind of transcended into this other plane, this other world almost, where when you're in the flow state. So I wonder if that's kind of what happens, like with we can look at the physiology of how the chemicals are getting released and things like that, but looking at it at a more practical level, I wonder again, when you're working out, you're just focusing on the wall ball, and you're focusing on that cue of like looking at the ball, catching it, going into the squats, coming back out of that squat, releasing the ball at the right time. Like, is that kind of how your brain, would you describe it? Do you even go through that process, or are you just kind of doing it, and so you don't have that problem with the difficulty keeping attention?
So it's something that I have noticed. It's almost like a spigot, and my brain is just shooting everywhere at the same time, right? But if we eliminate all distractions and we set certain rules, we can narrow that spigot down to a very focused stream. And being able to do that is, like I said, almost like a superpower, because if I do get into that flow state, I can get some pretty incredible stuff done.
Yeah.
And I think that is from releasing those endorphins, but also being singular focused. That's why I have picked up running recently, because it's almost mindless. You are just going through the motions. And then during running, that's when I actually, I guess, released almost dopamine and endorphins, because right when I sit down after a run, I can really get some pretty powerful work done.
That's super interesting. Do you listen, if listening to a podcast while you run, would that throw off that flow state for you? That kind of like, I'm just curious.
I've tried both ways, and podcasts do take me farther away from where I want to be, as opposed to I'll listen to the same song over and over again.
Right.
And that seems to work better for me.
Yeah. So I would imagine, I think in my audience, my very limited audience, I think that we would have more parents of kids who might have ADHD. So were you diagnosed, if you don't mind sharing that part of your story, like when were you diagnosed? Is there some kind of advice for the parents of like, hey, I have a 13-year-old kid who's having trouble in school? From my experience on the medical side of it, and researching a lot of the kind of these ancestral health, all these different concepts, holistic wellness, ADHD to me, when parents are saying their kids have something like that, or ADD, that to me it's like, well, the diet might be a major contributor to that. And again, just that kind of constant sugar spiking, Mountain Dew, caffeine at an early age, things like that tend to throw off the natural rhythms that we're looking for, because it's so abundant in kind of, especially in American society. So I don't know, I'd love to hear again your experience with getting diagnosed, and how you think maybe that translates to giving advice to parents or kids dealing with that now.
Yeah, so I wasn't diagnosed until the age of 26. So I knew there was always something. You drop the ball several times, or some people will tell you, man, if you only apply themselves, and you are trying to apply yourself, and people have high expectations of you because you have such great ideas, but you can't follow through with the ideas. So I've always had that. And then when I moved to New York, one of my bosses was like, man, I think you're ADD. And I was like, man, I think you're right. So I went to a psychiatrist, and he was like, yeah, you're very ADHD. And a piece of advice that I would give, and this is stuff that really dove deep into this past year. There's three. One being control your environment. Making sure that you're eliminating triggers being things that can pull you in several different directions, triggers being people that aren't necessarily the best for you. Just eliminating those altogether will definitely put you in a better place. Having the right people around you, like my boss knows that I'm ADHD. My counterpart, Corinne, she handles the front of house, I handle the back of house. She's type A and I'm not type A. So we balance each other out very well. So having people around you that know how to get the best work out of you is really important. And that starts with parents. And another thing is pursuing passion. So I've tried, I studied finance. So I tried to, once I found out I was having a kid, I went into a finance job as an analyst and I sat down at the desk 10 hours a day. And that was not good for me and my ADHD. So I just hated everything about it. So putting yourself in a position where you're constantly pursuing something that you're interested in is good for someone with ADHD. And I think that's why I've always circled back to fitness no matter what. Also, this is a job where I can, there's so many shiny toys for me. There's,
Yeah.
we have 20 members in the class. I'm constantly being able to use ADHD to my benefit because I can focus on so many different things at once and do it well. Then the next one would be exercise and diet. I barely have any sugars in my diet, or at least if I do, they're natural sugars. I don't eat processed foods. I drink a ton of water and I sleep extremely well. I think these are, and I know it sounds like fundamental
Crazy, man. No, it's crazy talk.
to everyone, but what I know when I'm eating a lot of bad stuff and I'm not sleeping well, my ADHD's through the roof. I'm losing my keys. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. As opposed to if I'm more strict with myself and I follow these rules that I know to work, it's not as bad and I can use it to my advantage. And then the third is habit formation. There's certain rules that I live my life by. I even set up contracts with myself that I can't break. And I think this is really important for everyone. I think anyone can benefit from this advice, but
Right.
especially people with ADHD, especially setting up contracts, because if I set up a 30-day contract, like I cannot modify this contract at all for 30 days, my mind can't wander around in 10 different directions. Now, by the time I done with that contract, it's already a habit at that point. And that's why I think this year I've been able to create some really good habits.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, and yeah, like you said, it's great advice for almost every human being. I think we all, especially in this modern world of having, so much disposable, information right at our fingertips with our phones. And it's easy to be like, well, what's going on Instagram? What's going on Facebook? What should I be reading? I need a distraction almost. And so I guess the question for me is it sounds like you have to create those systems yourself. But have you worked with a coach yourself? Have you worked with somebody to give you that accountability to, again, I was your coach in class, but we didn't necessarily work separately. And again, it's not something that I was like able to say in the moment, oh, Adam definitely has ADHD based on, it's not the kind of thing that shows up that way. I think it's easy enough to hide. And again, because the diagnosis of ADHD, and like you said, you only got diagnosed at 26, to a clinician, it can be very easy to see and be like, oh yeah, these are definitely symptoms. And, we can put you into this, category. But again, I would say if I took 100 people especially out of CrossFit classes, let's say, because they tend to be a very kind of unique group that's willing to go through that again, you might have a lot of folks who are that way. From a coaching perspective, as somebody who used to coach a lot of CrossFit, if I see that's where, again, it comes down to like, hey, I want you to go unbroken on this, or like we're going to simplify those cues so that, and again, you tell me if that kind of works in the sense of your fitness, but it's like, you're going to focus on this one thing. And if I give you like 10 different cues, it becomes way too much, right? Right? Are you frozen? Oh, hello. Adam?
Hello?
Yep, you frozen?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. How's your internet?
No.
You good?
It should be good. I think it should be good. Is it working?
Oh. Yeah, we're good now. You were frozen for a minute there, I think, on your. I
It's
assume it
working
was
on
on
my
your
end.
end.
Okay.
All right,
Sorry about that.
that's okay. Technical
We're good.
difficulties, all good. All right,
That
so
that was the ADHD. That's what it was.
yeah, ADHD of the internet. Did you hear my
Yeah.
question?
Yes.
Did you get?
So, I didn't hear the end of the question.
Okay, so I was saying I was kind of all over the place too. So I might have some form of ADD or ADHD with anyone who's listened to my podcast as well, because I tend to go on tangents and I'm just like, but I get excited about stuff too. I don't know if I've ever been. I don't know if I would even be diagnosed if I sat down with a psychiatrist or psychologist to have ADHD. But again, it's something interesting. My question though was in terms of being in a workout. Would something like, okay, this is, you're going to do A1 snatches, B1 and superset that with, planks or something like that. And then B1, B2, is that something that works for you? And you just have like a routine, kind of like the contract you have with yourself. So if you had a coach giving you a program, or you're just pulling that program from a class setting, is that something that works for you? Or, do you need some kind of different structure to work better for you?
So it has to be a program, and it has to be a strict program, and
Right.
someone else has to do it for me. Because if I can't program for myself, because it will turn into this whole big thing it wasn't
Right.
supposed to turn
And
into
yeah,
initially.
and that's what I think is true for almost every human. Again, is every coach needs a coach, and everyone needs a coach. I think, whether it's from a group setting where we can at least jump in and be like, hey, like we have this format, but we're going to specialize it for you, Adam. And again, that's where I was saying, in a group setting, if the workout is 150 wall balls for time, as your previous coach in a group setting, it might be like, I know that Adam is going to do better if I can say, hey, I want you to do 12 wall balls, put it down for 5 seconds, take 2 breaths, and then keep going. And I want you to do that as long as you can, basically, until you get the workout done, kind of thing. Is that the kind of thing that you need? Or is it like, go as unbroken as possible? Or is it, it sounds like you need that structure.
Yeah, I'm again, another characteristic of ADHD is all or nothing. So I'm the 0 to 100 real quick, burnout, and then I'm lying on the floor. So a coach definitely breaking down, hey, we're gonna do this for 20 seconds, and then you're gonna stop, and having that structure for me really does work, and that's where I perform my best in opens and just in competitions. Having someone break that down for me and me following it specifically really does work for me. And I think it would for anyone, but again, especially for people with ADHD, because if you tell me 150 wall balls, that's chaos in my head. There's too much going on. But if you
I'm gonna try to do 30, and then I'm gonna be like, oh shit, I'm tired, and then and then you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna rest for a minute, and then oh no, I got to get back on it, and then that's kind of what's going on in your mind, is what it sounds like.
But so I have to turn a lot of things into EMOMs, and if I can figure out the right formula for the right EMOM,
right,
I would have success with the specific workout.
Right. Very cool. Yeah, man. Are there any supplements, nootropics? I'm curious if you've played around with any of that to help with mental focus. Again, there's a couple different ones that are getting touted through the fitness space, and again, guys like Joe Rogan push some of that stuff. Have you played with any of that stuff, or are you more on like a medical routine?
I've done MCT oil, actually Joe Rogan's MCT oil, and I did see some sort of clarity, and I was fasting first thing in the morning when I was having the MCT oil with my coffee, and there was some sort of clarity there. I do take small doses of medication as needed, not necessarily on a very strict regimen. I think things need breaks, and you just don't want to get used to anything.
Right.
So I think it's a combination of both. More than anything, I think diet's the number one. All these pills and powders and all this stuff you could just be getting from food.
Yeah, and I'm just going to reinforce, you said already that you basically try to limit your sugar, right? And does that include carbohydrates in general? Are you trying to look at any numbers again based on that? Have you played with keeping your carbohydrate intake daily to under like 50 grams, or again, based on the fact that, you know, it helps you to have these numbers, or I would think some kind of structure. Have you played with that outside of the like simple, like just, I'm not going to have any sugar, I'm not going to bring it in my house, I'm just not going to do that because I know that's going to set me off in some ways?
So it's simple sugars and processed foods. Generally, I still get sugars from fruit. But no, I think carbohydrates are extremely important.
Yeah.
I think a balanced diet is where we need to be. I track everything. I still to today write everything down in my MyFitnessPal, and if I don't for a couple of days, there's chaos again in my head.
Yeah.
It just has to be tracked every single day, or else I don't know what I'm doing. I weigh everything. I know what it looks like, and I still weigh everything.
And for anyone who hasn't tried any of those things, again, whether you have ADHD or not, I think it's a cool experience to go through just to be able to sit and get a better relationship with food. That I think a lot of folks, it's easy to lose sight of that. No matter how much knowledge we think we have, you start weighing, you know, how much is an apple, you know, and then even without the core, you put the core back on, the part that you don't eat, and then you subtract that from like the gram. So like one popular thing that I recommend to a lot of clients I work with is the 800-gram challenge from E.C. Sinkowski.
So good.
Yeah, so good. And so that, for anyone who's not familiar, is just eating 800 grams of fruits and vegetables per day. And that's like the main kind of place to start for a lot of folks looking to go from kind of disorganized eating, if you will. And this is the first way to start weighing, measuring, and having like a goal, a number to look at. So again, if you're tracking everything you eat, that'll show up. If you start, do you do meal preps as well, or just to help you? Yeah,
it's also extremely important for me to.
Yeah.
I meal prep twice a week, and I eat almost the same thing all the time. There's like 4 different variations of my diet, and it includes all sorts of foods. There's, you know, a lot of greens, a lot of fruit, a lot of, you know, healthy grains, a lot of different kind of proteins, but it's still very limited. And because I have to eliminate choice. You know, if there's too much choice, then there's chaos again.
Right.
So yeah,
that's good, man. And do you eat out at all, or is that something you pretty much eliminated?
I do eat out. So especially with my amazing wife that has to put up with me, but I do eat out, and then those are just all right. We're just going for it. I do try to limit. I used to, because I'm all or nothing. If we were going out, I would have an entire box of pizza. But now I have rules set in place where, you know, it's just limiting quantity, you know, because you can still eat out and you can still enjoy yourself and still be off of your meal plan, but not go off the deep end, which is very hard for someone with ADHD. But setting these rules, not having second servings, you know, limiting the size of your plate, stuff like that really does work. You know, it's so crazy because it's not rocket science, but the second we let desire drive us and we get away from those rules, that's when, again, there's that chaos.
And so you're holding yourself accountable, like you said, with your own kind of internal contract. Is your wife involved in that at all? Or do you have another accountability buddy when it comes to some of that stuff, or a coach or anything?
I do not. This year's been a big personal journey for me where I just had to dig into myself and figure this thing out. And it worked that way. And I'm not necessarily saying that works for everyone. I do think people should look for help, but I just knew enough about nutrition and I knew enough about fitness, and there was enough good books that
and you said, just to reiterate the fact you've been in the fitness space since, whether, you know, on some level since around 2011, you said?
Yep, 2011. Personal trainer first, and then CrossFit coach, and then gym owner and head coach of a couple places. And so I've been in the space for a while.
So yeah, I just want to reiterate that for anyone like listening and being like, oh, I should totally just hold myself accountable and and that kind of thing. And it takes time. It takes, and that's a theme I've had with a few of the other fitness based folks I've had on this podcast, is it just takes time, experimentation, trial and error, seeing what works for you. And, it's going to be different, definitely, time and time again. So Jeff Evans just left a comment a little earlier, said, Adam, my guy. So Jeff Evans, someone, CrossFit Games athlete, one of the strongest dudes around. I know he had a long career with some of that stuff. And I don't know if you want to talk about, I know you guys have did you work with him or?
Yeah, we worked together with Fias, and that's how I met him. So very first year, 2012, did we start CrossFit in 2012?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And Dave Castro posted a video of the first athlete to clean 405, and that was Jeff Evans. And this is when I can clean 100 pounds or something.
Right.
It was ridiculous with terrible form. And and I looked at him and I was like, I want to be like that guy. And it was so crazy. Years later, we crossed paths and we became really good friends, and we talked about business and life and fatherhood on a consistent basis. He's an amazing person. And I do suggest you check out his journey because he's having a little bit of a comeback right now.
I've been watching his stuff on Instagram, and he's got a lot of plates on there. He's moving that weight pretty well. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to, if you're still watching there, Jeff, I'd love to get you on here also as a guest at some point. But yeah, and if any of you guys are watching right now, if you want to put questions in the comments, I'm able to see all that. So we'll get you on there. You also had Allison Salamone, maybe.
Yeah.
Said, you're the best coach, Adam. Always in awe of your knowledge and willingness to be so open about your journey and goals. So I just put that up real quick. But yeah, guys, if you have questions about ADHD, Adam's journey, anything from me, feel free to leave it in the comments. We'll try to get to it. But yeah, man, I mean, we covered a lot on the ADHD journey, as well as your entire journey there. And I don't know if there's any other big thoughts you had that you want to share about, next things to come or anything like that.
Couple things. First thing, I just wanted to say, I'm so grateful for you. You being my very first coach. And I remember that first session, and it was back squats, and I went to go pick up like 135 pounds, and I was doing a quarter squat where my knees were caving in, and I thought I was super fit. And you literally told me to put down the weight and grab a PVC pipe.
Yeah.
And just work with the PVC. And it was the most humbling experience. And I think that shame actually brought me back. I was like, man, I got to get good at this.
Yeah.
But having coaches that care to that level, I've seen it on both ends where I've seen terrible form. I've dropped into boxes and I'm like, man, this is not good. And having coaches that care that much about the individual, and checking their ego in a way that, they're still happy, and making that a priority, making their safety a priority,
right.
Separates you from any coach. And that's why anytime that I have any sort of question that's outside of my scope, I always ask Bo first. I don't know if you remember Shelly. Shelly, she had one leg, she got meningitis, and they had to amputate her leg. And she came to my gym. This is when I owned the gym. And she asked me if I can help her walk her kids down the aisle for their first communion. And she had never walked. It was 2 years that they had amputated her leg, and she was doing PT, and she had never walked. And I asked you, and you gave me some resources. You even said it was a little bit beyond your scope, but you gave me some resources, and we were able to help her do that. And it was probably the best thing coach-wise.
So rewarding. Yeah, when you can help someone achieve goals like that. And that's why, I think that's why some of us are in the field. We're not becoming millionaires overnight. We're not, maybe we caught on some GameStop stuff. I don't know, but
I wish.
Yeah, you could have lost money there too. It's always a gamble. That's why I stay away from that stuff. But yeah, I think we're in this field to help people out, and so rewarding for me to know that, random, so to speak, day in the gym there to, and again, I've pulled that line a couple times, and some people don't respond that well to it, where it's like, maybe put that bar down, and we need to get you to fix your form. And that's why now working virtually, which I've shifted 100% to, more or less. I might do some more stuff now that I'm here in Colorado, but in person. But being virtual, I always take folks through a pretty thorough assessment concept, and we're able to say like, yeah, look, your hip's not moving that well in these kind of 3 different things. And then we can put that picture together with, yes, from time to time, like I do have some aches and pains. And it's stuff that, again, we're just not aware of, even with the ADHD that you talked about, with having some mental clarity with like MCT oil. Most humans, again, that I work with tend to not even realize how much brain fog or just poor movement they have. So whatever that is, I'm here studying that. I've put $250,000 into my education based on, my last calculations, at least $250,000 into, between getting my doctorate, my CrossFit certifications, many other certifications and educational components. So that's my passion. I think you share a similar passion, and there's so much free stuff too. Good. God knows how many podcasts I've listened to, which is why I wanted to, kind of put this out there and get folks like you on here to share the journeys to continue. There's so much bad stuff out there. And again, I'm not here to, mention names or call people out, but, so much bad stuff out in, and again, something like, I will say something like Peloton is not necessarily bad, but when people are like, oh, that's sexy, I'm going to pay $2,500 and get a bike in my room. And, if it's a very incomplete fitness to me. That's why my brand and my messaging is fit care. I want to look at your overall fitness and how do you define fitness? Being really good on the Peloton is going to get you maybe better at 1 or 2 components of fitness. But if you're not doing anything else, I just think that, it's like leaving money on the table. It's like of not investing and diversifying your stock portfolio, so to speak, for anyone who's into that side of thing, the finance side. But yeah, I mean, that's my ramble. That's my ADHD ramble. So I apologize.
No, and I think you touched on something extremely important, where coaches need to understand when something is beyond their scope. And it's not something that a lot of coaches do. And they feel like, oh, I can read something online and I can help this person. You have to understand that you can't fix everything, and you have to reach out. And that's why I have reached out to you, and I have reached out to other people to help. We have a Frog Fit program where it's an accountability program based around nutrition. And I have 20 frog fitters, and there was some stuff that was beyond our scope, and we referred them to our registered dietitian. It's so important to understand and check your ego at the door and understand that some things are going to be beyond your scope, and maybe $250,000 in education is worth referring it to that person.
Yeah. And that's one thing when we talk about pricing, people compare, oh, this trainer or this therapist is charging $100 an hour and this one's charging $200 an hour. You're not paying necessarily for my hour. You're paying for my many years of getting to this point. And, again, listening to thousands of podcasts or reading hundreds of books. I'll show my books over here somewhere. Is that the right way? Yeah. A couple of books there.
And having, and just experience, like putting that into practice and having it fail. Like a theory is just a theory, and an idea is just an idea. But until you put it into practice and put it through the fire several times, it doesn't have that much value because everyone's completely different and everyone's physiology is completely different.
Yes.
And so it's, again, I can't stress it enough that you really, have to dive deep. Across at level 1 may not, that was just the starting point.
Oh yeah.
That was just to get you through the door.
Right.
And you have to continuously educate yourself, and you have to have big mentors, and it's something that I plan on continuing to do.
Yeah, it's a lifetime of learning. Things change too. And on top of that, I'll say, this is my geeky moment for a sec, if you'll allow me. The definition of evidence-based practice, which is kind of a, maybe, I don't know how familiar you are with that term, but I think I've seen it out there from time to time. But evidence-based practice is 3 components. So one component is knowing what all the research says. So the research says if you have MCT oil and you have 5, teaspoons of it every day, like it's going to do X, Y, Z. And the research has been done to show, and, you can look at, okay, this study had 100 people in it, and this study had 5 people in it, and this study had 1,000 people in it. So you could know all the research that you want. And at the end of the day, or you could say creatine is one of the best studied, supplements in history and has some of the fewest side effects in history. So, but you can know the research, but then on top of that, you have to have your experience as a clinician or as a coach, as a trainer. So that's 30, 1/3 of that process. And then the other third is still that human, that patient, that client. So again, I could have said to you, and it might have changed you for the better when I said like, hey, put down that bar, grab the PVC. We're going to redefine what squatting is. Whereas if I say that to somebody else, again, their ego is like, no, like, and it just doesn't jive that well. So no matter what the research says we have to do this. But, if that human is just not on board with that, or the delivery of that is not right, or again, the clinician might even have done 1,000 times of allowing XYZ, and in their experience, they've gotten good enough results, or they didn't see the fallout of that or the injuries of that because that person just stopped coming, and they never really connected that to, like these partial squats actually lead to more injuries. So anyway, that's my little quick rant on the triangle of evidence-based practice and how, that's how we grow as coaches.
I 100% believe in that. And I think there's only through evidence-based practice that we can get to the final result, which is a better you. And we have this Frog Fit program, and I tell them day one, it's like, this is just an estimate. We did an in-body scan, we got your BMR. Now we're going to create a deficit or surplus based off your goals, but this is just an estimate, and it's until we see if this specifically works for you, and we take it and we do this waltz, and we're waltzing back and forth, right, so we can get to that place that we need to be. So again, nutrition is so tricky in so many different aspects. When you think about hormones and so many variables that come into play, inflammation and all stuff, that there is no one size fit all, and it is a trial and error. And I probably do need to work with a coach when it comes to these things.
Yeah, and on top of that, I'll say again, if there was any one thing that worked, if it was just like calories in, calories out, that's all we need to think about. Like you said, you should be burning 1,600 calories a day based on how much you weigh and BMR, basal metabolic rate, and all that stuff. And then, okay, cool. If your diet's 1,200 calories, you're gonna lose weight every week. Like, we can just do that, but there's so many aspects to it. Well, what happens when I get hungry? What happens when I have a craving? What happens when, I'm at a party, and I have to eat some, or there's peer pressure, whatever. Anyway, but yeah, I think totally the nutrition side we could talk about for hours too. But that's where totally I'll double down and say a coach is vital to help you have a better relationship with food. That's really what it comes down to for me. When I work with a client, I don't want to be the whatever voice in the sky speaking, just being like, you need to do this. It's more, hey, I saw you did this. What happened when we tried that? And like you said, it's trial and error, but it's also like, okay, cool. I like this concept. Let's see if we can take that and work with it. Like I have a client right now who I'm trying to get to meal prep. Again, it's something you've played with and gotten really good at. For him, it's tough and he's not used to it. So I'm like walking him through step by step. And we tried it this past Sunday. We were aiming for 3 days worth of meals. And he struggled with it. So it's just, okay, cool. That didn't work that great. Let's see what we can improve upon. And the saying there, that I love is you either win or you learn. So if that wasn't a win, there's something to learn from that. Same thing with every workout. It's can we sit down and reflect on that, and can you learn something from it? And it's doing stuff with intention. And again, based on your ADHD, you might have had to really connect to that even faster than most people. But until you have somebody, talking about it on a podcast or connecting that to you as an individual, it's tough to really learn those lessons, which is why I try to get to every human I can. So if you're watching this, if you want to talk about any of that stuff, any of these concepts are exciting, feel free to reach out to me. I do free 15-minute calls that you can schedule on my calendar. Tell them where they can find you, good sir.
So you can find me at Adam Caratini at Instagram. My first name and just my last name. Respond same day. I'm very responsive. So if you need any help with nutrition, we have a Frog Fit program. If you want to come check out our studio, it's always open.
Yeah, if you guys are anywhere near Central Florida, that Orlando area, definitely go check them out there. And man, This was really fun. I hope we can do another episode maybe in a few months or something, circle back on some of these concepts. I'd love for anyone listening, watching, if they have, again, like I think that's something huge that we're getting more diagnoses of ADHD and things like that. And I think there's a huge untalked about, or parents are just kind of like, okay, cool, we're going to put them on some medication. And they tend to not go to the, what about your diet? What about exercise? How do we use those things to manage the situation, rather than, again, let me just give them a pill or give them an iPad to, deal with that as much as possible. So I think there's tons that we could dive further into. And again, I'm excited to explore that a little more with you. Again, if you guys are listening to this or watching, definitely would love, I think, to reach out to me and or Adam, and we can, maybe help you fill in some of the dots on that. That would be awesome. I do think there's a lot of folks struggling with that who go to Google and find some answers, but I think it's an incomplete picture. So awesome, dude. Any other closing thoughts?
That's it. I just hope people took this pandemic to really connect with what they're passionate about and connect with loved ones, and hopefully we're on the other end of this. And I wish everyone good health.
Awesome, brother. Appreciate it. We'll talk soon. Signing off, everyone. Peace.
Bye, guys.